series.
Very serious.
Try.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition, a co-feature on the Sea of Tranquility and Comic Book Users site, web channel, I should say. I'm your host, Pete Pardo, and I have a very special guest here today, Mr. Dan Brown, owner and proprietor of the warehouse in Newburgh, New York, as well as a mega zombie fan. And today we're going to do a show all about The Walking Dead. Not only the TV show, but the comic as well. This is going to kind of be a rant as well as a history of this iconic, whatever you want to call it.
No matter how you slice it or dice it, it has been one of the largest watched television series in the history of not only cable, but in television. And you cannot deny that. Even the ratings as of such, with 5 million people, that is larger than Breaking Bad in its greatest season, its final season. So 5 million is nothing to slouch at, although it's dropped. But then again, we know human nature, it's kind of like we love to watch you go up and all of a sudden you fail. But they're not failing. It's 9 years. Yeah. And let's face it.
It's been a great run.
Great run.
And it's still having a great run in the comics. So let's go back in time a little bit. So we've had a love affair with zombies in this world for quite a number of decades here. And it kind of all really jump-started with George Romero back in
1968. I mean, I saw it in the movie theaters in 1970. Not to give away my age, I was 6 months old. No, but I saw it in 1970, I believe, on the midnight showings. And when you saw it in those days, it was so breakthrough. If you put it in perspective, it was a time when all of a sudden, not only was Grandma coming back, or like the very buxom vampires in the Hammer films, which had a special place in my heart as a testosterone-driven teenager, but all of a sudden you have the Night of the Living Dead, where Grandma's coming back, or that creepy aunt you always ran from, they want to give you a kiss, but they don't want to come back. They just want to eat your face.
That's it.
And so you sit there and say, get me the hell out of here. But that put a hold, to put yourself in that perspective of Night of the Living Dead, it was such a breakthrough film on so many levels. It's worth a show or a symposium or college study on many levels. But anyhow, we're not here to talk about it. We know what George Romero has done. He's always been a special place in my heart. We're talking about the show that actually he inspired. And actually Robert Kirkman will say the first thing, if it wasn't for The Walking Dead, I wouldn't be here. And that's true. And so that's what we're here to talk about.
Romero definitely spawned the comic. Absolutely. But there was kind of a little bit of a lull in Zombieville in general. I mean, we had, Romero did a ton of sequels. Oh, yeah. And we had a bunch of other, mostly bad zombie films over the years. But it wasn't until, and I don't remember exactly the year, that the Walking Dead comic first hit the stand.
I think it was 2005.
I think, might be early, exactly.
2003 or 2005. We're not that much up on copyrights, but we do know it was around at least 5 to 7 years before it hit the screen.
But a pretty big deal. When that comic first came out. I mean, that was kind of like the sensation on, again, not a Marvel comic, not a DC comic, right?
On Image, and in black and white.
Yeah, exactly.
And to a nation of people that, realize I'm afraid of black and white. Little do all of you know that prior to 1964, when color TV came into our homes, the world was black and white.
That's right.
Okay, but getting back to that, yes, it came out, it made a sensation. A friend of mine had told me about it. And he said, you like zombies, there's The Walking, you have to read it. And his pitch to me was, it's not about the zombies. It's about the people. And I was like, oh, that's cute. And whatever it was, but I just wasn't.
If you're a horror fan, you didn't want to hear that.
Yeah,
right?
but I just wasn't reading comics at that point. I had so much going on. And then all of a sudden, about a year, when they announced that Walking Dead was going to, of all places, AMC, on a cable channel, I got interested in it. And I went out, and a friend of mine lent me a couple of the hardcover editions that covered the first 48 issues. At that time, or 50, and what's easier, the soft covers, which cover, I think, 6 issues.
Yes.
6 issues?
5 or 6.
5 or 6.
And there's the large compendiums, too, which I have the first 2, which are enormous.
And that's a great way to do it, So I went, I read them, and I said, wow, this is pretty, I got kind of hooked on it. And then I watched the show, and I enjoyed it. There was, like I said, the comic runs in kind of on another lane on the highway, but it's slightly different. And what kept me intrigued about The Walking Dead was that it went with the comic, but it changed things up enough just to keep you interested. It wasn't like you did it verbatim because people get bored. I know what's going to happen. But things did happen in the comic and in the TV series, totally different, but it happened on different levels, and it kept people kind of like, oh, wow, I guess I'll turn in next week, or tune in next week, and that's what it was.
Yeah, and I think the creators of the show were in a little bit of a catch-22, because what you just said before is like you don't want to have the plots running exactly parallel to the comic, because then, of course, you have a selection of the viewership that is going to know everything that's going to happen.
Exactly.
However, there are a lot of people, millions of people, who watch this show who have never once opened up one of the comics.
I think it would ruin them, and I respect that. I think people want to watch the show. I love the show. I mean, I get it. I think to get a full understanding, and when you want to join that secret handshake society of mutants that do both, that's a different perspective.
Which we are both.
We are both. We are both card-carrying mutant members of whatever that organization is.
So for people like us, we've on and off been kind of frustrated with some of the directions that the show goes in, obviously. I mean, I had the same issue with, I don't know if you watch Preacher at all. I'm a diehard fan of the Preacher comic. I've given up on AMC shows because it's deviated so far from the comic.
I'm surprised about Preacher because it's funny. Because Preacher was a Vertigo comic from the 1990s, which, A, was in color, so people read it. Vertigo at that time was the mature level, pushing the boundaries. And I always thought that Preacher, if anything is going to be adapted to something, it would be Preacher. Yeah. Now, I have yet to this day, because of probably what you went through, I have not sat and watched the Preacher story because I thought it might deviate too much.
Yeah.
But I thought that'd be the first one. The Walking Dead would be something like a black and white comic on Image, which is not a major label, to also make that.
And a brutal comic.
And a brutal. Well, mind you, the funny thing about it is that, and we'll get back to this later in the history, but Walking Dead was initially pitched to NBC and HBO. Now, I don't know what NBC's reasons were, but HBO...
I could see NBC not taking it.
But
HBO?
But they said there's too much blood in it.
Who said that, HBO?
They wanted to pull back on the gore. And then all of a sudden AMC, like, gore, we're in. Now, funny thing, just step back a little bit. I believe it was NBC in 2008. Okay, prior to The Walking Dead coming on, there was a pilot that was filmed in 2007 called Babylon Fields. Now, Babylon Fields was based on a French film, I think called The Returned.
Okay.
I know there's a series based on this. It's based about people coming back from the dead, out of the graveyard. They weren't their brain-munching zombies a la George Romero. They were people that died, came back. They didn't really remember much about their death. But they came back, and all of a sudden they're trying to reacclimate themselves to the world where former wives and husbands were remarried, people have moved on, and they're trying to reacclimate. Now, it was a very successful French film on the independent level, and NBC did a pilot in 2008. And it is available if you want to see it. It has leaked out, and it's out there. It's on YouTube, and it's under Babylon Fields, and it's broken up into 3 chapters, like 20 or 15-minute chapters or a 45-minute pilot. And it's interesting. It takes place in Babylon, Long Island. What a shocker. A lot of zombies out there, especially with the wires. But they come back. And it was interesting. It's hard to cram a lot in 45 minutes and sell or pitch the thing. And there's obviously somebody out there that said, some executive said, this zombie thing, this ain't going to work. Right? And meanwhile, if you want to visit him now, I think he's at the last Blockbuster in Anchorage.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said, this will never work. Now, the funny thing, The Walking Dead became so popular that, and not NBC, but the owners of the original story re-pitched Babylon Fields to another network.
Wow.
And they filmed a whole new pilot with Skeet Ulrich, Virginia Madsen, and so forth. Once again, Babylon, Long Island, same storyline, but that pilot was never picked up and has not been seen since. So there shows that. But that's going off to the sidetrack here. Let's get back to The Walking Dead.
So season 1, I thought probably the strongest season out of all of them, or if not in the top 3. Basically hooked us all in. So whether you read the comic or not,
that was pretty tight.
It really did.
Up until the CDC.
Yeah.
The comic follows, the first season follows the comic pretty tightly.
Yep.
The only differences that are really noticeable in it. Not to ruin anybody who's never read the comic, if you plan on doing it. So,
by the way, I forgot to say at the beginning of the show, spoilers galore here.
Yeah,
if you're not up to date with either the comic or the show, you better stop watching right now.
I take no legal responsibility for screwing up your holidays, okay? So that's the way it goes, all right? We're going to tell you stuff here you may not know, and if you do know, don't blame me, blame yourself. But anyhow, getting back to the first season, the only major changes that deviated from the comic is that, one, in the minor level, Morgan, his wife is not part of it. When he's sitting there in the window of the building and he's got to shoot his wife because she has a memory of coming back, which is very weird, she doesn't exist. She's mentioned and that's it. The other story's fine. Yeah. 2, Daryl and Merle do not exist. Get over it.
Even to this day.
They
are not in the comic
reasons
at all.
possibly why Daryl is not in the comic. That's more juicy backstage fodder. But the thing is that Daryl and Merle, Earl and Merle's a country group. Daryl and Merle don't appear in the comic strips. As a matter of fact, Daryl Dixon, the character, okay, when Merle disappeared and cut his hand off, he was supposed to be gone. Okay, and then Daryl was also supposed to buy it himself. Norman Reedus and Daryl were not supposed to stay on the show. But he was so popular, and I'll tell you why he was so popular compared to most of them, that he became a series regular. The other thing that has changed also is that they do not visit the CDC. That does not exist in the comic. In the comic, to this day, if people read through it, they are unaware of the global implications of this plague. It is a mystery. It's a day by day. They don't realize how far this spreads. The thing is, now there's 2 reasons why they did the CDC. One, Robert Kirkman, for starters, not one, but he's come out and said, I've always regretted writing the CDC thing, or participating in the CDC. Now, I believe, and I may not be right about this, once again, these are theories and stuff like that. You want to sit there and get all bloggy on me, it's all cool, I don't care. But the thing is that with the CDC, is that they did it because I don't believe when they filmed the pilot, the whole series was a pilot, that if they weren't picked up, it gave somewhat of closure. Yeah, they left, they drove over the distance, we never saw them again. Plus also, there's also the thing, it's like, viewers are stupid, let's spoon feed them stuff. No, it's not just in Atlanta, it's everywhere. You got it? Okay, let's move on. They do that. Yeah. But I think it was more along the lines they weren't sure about it, and they said, let's give it some kind of half-ass closure. And that's what happened. But the beauty of the comic is that nobody knows it's global. Right. They have never been told we all have it. It's happened in France. It's happened here. It's happened there. They don't know that. And
the comic never takes you anywhere else.
No. They go as far as Alexandria. I have not followed the new comics, but it goes from Atlanta, Georgia, up through Virginia, into Washington, D.C., possibly, on a couple of road trips. Right. But that's it. Yeah. It never goes any further. And that's the world they know. So as far as they know, there are no zombies in Boise. They have no idea. Or walkers. Sorry, walkers. Yeah, that's my pitch on that. Yeah, no, but I love the first season.
A good first season. And again, they introduced the characters that everybody came to love over the course of many seasons.
And handled well.
Yeah, so Rick Grimes and Carol and Andrea and Carl and what was Rick's wife's name again? Lori. And of course Shane.
The other difference. Shane never makes it out of Atlanta.
That's true.
Not to ruin your day. Okay? Another reason why they probably kept Shane around is because there was a lot of alpha male tension going on. Yeah. Okay, in the TV show. There was also that sexual tension going on. Okay, and they want that. But actually, not to ruin anybody's day once again, Shane does die in a certain way he does in the show. But he never gets out of the encampment.
Much earlier.
He's killed by comic book number 6.
Yeah, the timelines of the comic and the show started to really change and differ right after that first season.
Right.
All of a sudden, things started to happen out of whack. Relationships were different. So we were talking earlier about, so Andrea and Dale, do you guys remember Dale from season 1? They were actually in a relationship
in the first season. Right? Yeah, they were. No, they basically maybe it started a trade-off. If you want to stay in my safe, warm RV, you got to do something for Daddy here. I don't know if that was the case, but what happened? They actually had a relationship, and they actually were fond of each other. And of course, her sister was there, but it was kind of a trade-off, or whatever it was. They were, and Dale was a much more like retired drill sergeant type of guy that went fishing, even though he wore that Mr. Wilson hat from Home Improvement. and this. And he also went a different path also in the story. But that might be time for Season 2 and Season 3, and we'll get into that. But there were some different things that went on.
Yeah. Carol was never really a big character in the comic.
Carol came and went, and honestly, nobody used
Nobody
it.
missed her.
Now, to give you a spoiler work or send all the kids to bed, you have to understand something, that The Walking Dead in the comic books, okay, is a passion pit. Seriously. I mean, mentioning Carol, okay, Carol's no longer around because somebody cheated on her, honestly, or whatever it was. She was a fragile flower out the gate. Okay, she's not what she is today in the comic book, but there's a lot, if you see...
Carol the Warrior never existed in the comic.
Carol the Warrior, and yet in the comic, there's Michonne the sex addict. And that's how it works. You know that, right?
Yep.
We're not hinting at things here. She's managed to kill people through her antics and this and that and so forth and so on. And she's like a Black Widow. Not literally, but she's like bad news for people she sleeps with.
Yep.
But anyhow, we'll get into that later when all the kids are in bed. So, all right. So what should we go?
So Season 2.
Season 2.
Season 2.
The longest nap.
Yeah.
Now, there's reasons for that. Now, we can go into that now, or I could spend a whole section here talking about the trials and tribulations of Frank Darabont. How do you want to work this?
Go for it.
All right, so listen. Before we go into the farm, anybody who's familiar with the comic, you know, there's major changes. Now, to understand something about The Walking Dead, you have to understand the creative process of it. And also, some of the changes that have occurred in the storyline, major storyline, have probably been more related with Machiavellian intrigue behind the scenes than on the screen of your television. And how that's working out is the following. Okay, to go back, we have to go back to the creation of The Walking Dead. Okay, one of the creative team that put the Walking Dead TV series together is a gentleman by the name of Frank Darabont. Frank Darabont is a very respected script doctor, director, writer in the big movie business. As a matter of fact, he was responsible, as I said, for the creative process, along with Robert Kirkman and somebody else, I can't recall off the top of my head, to actually, and Frank Darabont was the one that pitched it to the networks. So, when it was finally brought up, Frank Darabont went in board as not only the showrunner, he was also the writer and the director of record. He handled everything. Now, television is a lot different than making a movie. And it's a bit more pressure. And Frank Darabont is pretty much along the lines, if we were in German cinema, he would have been Fritz Lang's brother with a bad attitude. Okay, he is not type A, but he is very passionate about what he does. And if you step in his garden, he's going to like raise hell. And this was happened there. So what happens is the series goes through. Now, Frank Darabont, you understand, came with some amazing credentials. One, he started in Hollywood in the late 70s, early 80s. Started as a production assistant on a Linda Blair horror film called Hell Night. From there,
pretty cool movie, actually.
He was a writer on Tales from the Crypt. He wrote the script for Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. He also did a number of other writings. He's a script doctor. But his most famous claim to fame, is that he is the director of choice by Stephen King. He has done the most successful adaptations of 3 Stephen King short stories into films. And we're not talking about some real hack jobs in a drive-in. We're talking about The Shawshank Redemption. We're talking about The Green Mile. And then finally, The Mist, which did not have an ending in Stephen King's original short stories. And when Darabont created this twist ending at the end, Stephen King was actually wowed by it, and we'll say that in public. That he could never come up with an ending, but Frank Darabont did. So this guy came to The Walking Dead with some serious credentials.
Yeah.
Now, the changes in script, if we go back, and why don't you explain the differences between Dale in the comic and Andrea in the comic as opposed to the TV show, which you can recall. I'll fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I mean, Dale in the show is this really nice older guy that everybody loved and beloved by the rest of the cast. Andrea in the show becomes kind of more of like, if she would have stuck around, more like a Carol type of
well, that was her goal in the comic.
Right. And in the comic, she actually was that person. So they kind of, what they did between the show and the comic is they changed the characteristics of some of these characters. So let's off this character, but yet take what we built with that character in the comic and produce it with this other character in the show. So Andrea, up until very, very recently, was still a major kick-ass character in the comic.
She was the sharpshooter. She actually became Rick's main girlfriend.
Yes.
A.K.A. what Michonne is doing in the TV show. And Carl referred to, by the way, Carl's still alive in the comic, I believe.
Yes.
He refers to her as his stepmom.
Yeah.
So Andrea was a character from day one all the way through to about a year ago on the comic, which is issue 170. Now, the thing about it also on top of that is that Andrea, that's her Italian cousin, right? That's the Italian version.
That's right.
We got Ricardo and
Andrea.
You know, where was I? Oh, here it goes. This is where the old age sets in. Oh, the difference is, okay, she's alive and well in the comic, but all of a sudden the TV series, she started out with certain attributes. And some of those attributes, when Andrea on the TV show was gone, were picked up. Andrea was a sharpshooter in the comic. That went over to Sasha. Once again, Andrea became the stepmother of Carl and the lover of Rick. That fell into Michonne's position.
And no affair with the governor. That never happened.
No, that never appeared. She never was wishy-washy. She was always with the team. And since Shane died before he left Atlanta in the comic, there was no hanky-panky in the back of the car after a shooting lesson. Yeah, another passionate moment. You know, really, seriously, you're there. You got people running around trying to eat your face. You're scrabbling to find like something. All of a sudden, you have this. You can't wait to have a can of SpaghettiOs. And you really, the first thing in my mind is I want to get laid.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, seriously. You know, I'm more concerned about no, just get me the hell. Feet don't fail me now. Get me out of here. But anyhow, getting back now, the differences that may have occurred. You mind going on here?
No,
I'm on a roll.
You're on a roll.
Oh, anyhow, but getting back to Andrea and Dale. Now, as Peter said, Andrea is going all the way through the end, and she's a major character. Dale, now I'll give you some attributes of Dale and changes in the storyline. In the comic book, Dale is the one, not only is he sleeping with Andrea, he's a bit more gruffer, a bit more of a survivalist type of thing. When they go to the prison, he is the one that gets his leg bit. And they have to amputate Dale's leg. Not to change subject, but not to ruin anybody's day, R.I.P. Scott Wilson, who did an amazing job with Herschel. Yeah. Herschel in the comic book was a schmuck. He was really an annoying religious zealot that really was just...
He was the dad you hated.
He had no, really, even in the comic, when he finally got, I was like, Jesus, thank God, he's gone. No, but and Scott Wilson brought this fatherly, ex-alcoholic, whatever, this, and eventually...
He was wonderful.
Yeah, and then he eventually realized, like, God, I'm bringing all these walkers into my barn, and they ain't going to do shit. I got to get out of here. It's not working. But anyhow, getting back to Dale. Dale lost his leg in the prison. They cut it off. Now, at one point, he's in the prison, whatever he's doing, Dale, and he's outside. I think he's out like a paint-by-number set, or he's sitting there with a book, and he's sitting in a field, right? Or he's outside, just outside the prison walls, and he's kind of enjoying, like, he's got his sunscreen, getting a tan, or whatever, and all of a sudden he gets abducted by some people. And he wakes up with his other leg gone.
Yep, that's right, yep.
And he was abducted by a roving band of cannibals.
Yes, that's right.
Now, roving band, spoiler alert, Terminus does not exist. Terminus, was, although well done and great in the TV series, did not exist in that. It gave everybody a goal to get to. And so what happened is, so the roving band of cannibals were more along the lines of a group called Joe and the Reclaimers. Was a band of roving hooligans that Daryl hooked up with after he lost Beth. And they basically go around, they say, I claim this. That's how they got it. At one point, they kind of pulled a mind screw on me on the show. And at one point, when Daryl was having an altercation with one of the Reclaimers, they turned around and they killed the guy. And I thought, oh, they're serving him up for dinner. These must be the cannibals. No, they just let him go. We're going to eat pudding that Carl left behind in the house. So they get them. When Rick finds the cannibals, Dale dies of blood shock or blood loss. And all of a sudden, when Rick meets the cannibals, even toned down from the TV, they butchered them and burned them in a fire. Everything. Heads, pinkies, this, that, the other.
All
Done. They were gone. That was the end of the cannibals.
Yep.
There was no Gareth. There was no Bing Crosby's daughter making steaks on the grill. Okay? She wasn't there. You know, as funny as she was. Oh, I know her. She's Bing Crosby's daughter. I think. I don't know what marriage, first or second, but, yeah. He's the crooner's kid. But anyhow, so there's no Terminus.
No Terminus.
And then, of course, Dale's loss of a leg went to Bob later on, and the whole thing. So that's how Dale's saga played out in the story.
Yeah, very different.
Andrea, on the other hand, went all the way as we discussed. Yeah. Andrea in the TV show, what happened? All right, she's hanging around Michonne. Then all of a sudden she goes to Woodbury, and she not only falls for the charms of the governor, who, by the way, not to change stuff, I hope you're following these. You may have to watch this 3 times. But
please watch it 3 times.
The governor,
even 5.
Yeah, the governor in the comic is not this tall, strapping Englishman
not at all.
with an eye patch. If you go to the TV show, once again, they tried to play, before they decided to put Glenn under a friggin' dumpster and say, is he dead?
Yeah.
Right? They would play with these little games if you watch the comic. Because, in my estimation, when it came to the governor, when they went to the prison, they ran into the convicts that were living in the prison. And there was one guy, I can't remember his name, but he was the guy that Rick put an axe in his head. Remember, he was the guy who was the leader of that. Well, he physically looked like the governor in the comic. I thought, this guy's going to get kicked out of prison and become the governor. No, once again, they pulled one over on me. He was just some guy, didn't wash his hair in the prison, and he ended up with an axe pick in his head. Okay? But as people said about the governor in the comic, he looked like a guy that ran the graveyard shift in an adult bookstore. That's how he looked. So anyhow, she falls.
I was not, and he's a great actor, but I was not a fan of the casting of the governor or the way they portrayed him in the TV show. He is an awful, awful, awful human being in the comic.
Oh, he's awful. No,
wretched.
His in the comic.
Maybe not quite Negan wretched, but not far from it. And they really kind of pussyfooted around.
Oh yeah. Plus, also, in the comic, the governor, number one. You see Aaron running around late. You're watching the show. He's got like this cyborg hand. Okay, the governor actually cut Rick's hand off. The governor was abducted by Rick.
I don't know about you, but I waited season after season after season for Rick to lose his hand.
Just wait too
much. I was waiting for it to come, and it never happened.
Yeah, there were a couple close moments.
Yeah,
I think when they got to Alexandria, he almost got it caught in the garbage disposal.
Yes,
in
the
I
was
sink.
like, now this is the time.
They get back into luxuries of life, and all of a sudden, he's going to lose his hand in the goddamn garbage disposal.
Yeah.
So, no, but that didn't happen. Sorry, I know you're going to be searching, going, where did I miss that?
Tyrese, the character that
let me get back to change the story. I'm sorry, we're off on a tangent.
Yeah,
this may end up being like a 3-hour rant. This might be in 3 parts. Might be a trilogy. We might release it every Christmas, like Star Wars. Next time we'll have a Wookiee. But anyhow, getting back to that. So Andrea succumbed to the governor. She went off, and then she was wishy-washy. She liked the governor. Why don't you like the governor? And you turn around, and she went to the prison. I want to warn the prison. Yeah. And the governor took her, and like with everybody, he just, has a falling out with, he decides to kill her. So he puts her in a room, he stabs his best friend, who was the doctor, who knew him as Phil before the big thing. Well, he's not Phil anymore, he's the guy that stabbed you. And he sits there and he waits, and then he bites Andrea dies, Michonne puts her out of her misery. That's where the thing's ended. Now, as I said earlier, things changed in the series due to behind-the-scenes politics. So we're going to go back. If you'll entertain me, I'm going to go back to the Frank Darabont thing. Now, Frank Darabont, before he entered into The Walking Dead, in the whole creative process, the last film he did was a Stephen King adaptation, which was The Mist. There are 5 people in the Mist cast that either almost made it on the show, or had a small role, or became a major player. First, we're going to start with the main character in The Mist by an actor by the name of Thomas Jane. Thomas Jane has been in numerous things.
Punisher?
The Punisher. He was in a TV series called Hung, about being a middle-aged male prostitute. A comedy, not serious. It wasn't drama. And there's nothing serious about middle-aged prostitute men does. But anyways, where am I going with this? Anyhow. Where was I? Oh, yeah, Frank Darabont, right?
Yeah, the cast from the
Yes,
Mist,
and so Thomas Jane was actually Frank Darabont's first choice to be Rick Grimes.
Wow.
But he received an offer from HBO to play in the series Hung, which was about the middle-aged male prostitute. And he took it and ran for 3 years.
Yeah.
Another actor that was in the cast of The Mist was, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he had one role in the beginning of the first season, and he is the military walker that Rick runs into on the tank. One that was passed out next to him. He was just an actor in The Mist. He had this small role. Now it gets even. Now this is where all this stuff ties in. I know you're dying to hear it. First, in the cast of The Mist was Jeffrey DeMunn, who played Dale, Laurie Holden, who played Andrea,
That's right.
and oddly enough, McBride, Carol. That's Melissa.
Oh, she was in that? I don't
She
remember
has
her.
a small role in that as well.
Okay.
Now, prior to that, Melissa McBride, who plays Carol, was known in the entertainment business as being more of a casting director. She had done a number of films here and there, but you don't see a casting director. Now, the strange thing about it is that we're going back to the Darabont situation. He leaves. Okay, there's cordial letters. We wish you well in your endeavor. We had creative
Big deal when
differences.
he left.
Well,
Real
yeah.
big deal.
They fired him, and they said it was a mutual understanding. This thing, gone. All of a sudden, a few years later, all of a sudden comes out that Frank Darabont is starting a $300 million lawsuit against AMC about lost profits and such on a show that he helped create and spearhead. All of a sudden, after that, the rebuttal was letters come out or emails that he had sent to some of upper echelon at AMC about, let's say, his unhappiness, what's going on. But it was kind of tersely written. It was, like I said, Fritz Lang's older brother with a bad attitude, and they felt threatened by him almost. So that surfaced. Then another year or two goes by, and then all of a sudden you hear Jeffrey DeMunn, who played Dale, is that when he told AMC that if Frank Darabont is out, I am out. And thus, he got written off. Secondly, Laurie Holden, who played Andrea, who thought she was in for a nice long ride with this character according to the comics, because many of them did start reading the comics, get an idea of their character. All of a sudden, she found herself in this wishy-washy role, and then all of a sudden, written off the show.
Goodbye.
Yeah. And I think the only reason why, and if you notice this, season 2, which is Herschel's Farm, and it's very long.
Long and drawn out, much longer than...
And it's only a 5 or 6 book story arc.
Which took them 2 seasons to get through.
Pretty much, 2 half seasons, correct. I don't think they went straight through. But give us your input on the Herschel Farm era, and then we'll kind of...
You know, there were a couple of episodes that were extremely well done in that arc on the TV show. Like, I thought the fire episode was great.
Oh, yeah.
Where the barn goes on
Yeah.
fire. And that was very well done. Probably because it was signaling the end of the arc, right? But I thought that they used that story arc on the show and extended it so much to develop those characters.
Yes.
Which, when you look back on it, probably they did a really good job. Because would we have cared much and given a shit much about Maggie if it weren't for what they did?
No, it does. In retrospect, at first it was...
Herschel himself, he was a character we all loved, right? I mean, regardless of what you thought about him in the comic, we loved him in the show.
Oh, yeah. And and that's true. And that's why it's also, we'll get into like the differences on how people bit the bullet.
Yeah.
Herschel we didn't like, who just got taken out of execution style of the prison. And then there's the Herschel we loved and how he went out. And that was totally different.
Yeah.
Than
Shane
anything
became a
else.
scumbag on the show at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Which, you know...
But I think that Shane, he's not a scumbag. I think
But they portrayed him that way.
No, they did. But I think he was like, you got Rick. See, the thing is, the first line that was ever issued, the first line ever spoken in The Walking Dead, okay? And this is something that stuck with Rick Grimes to the end, which is conflicted about it, is the first line he ever utters, "Little girl, I'm a police officer." And I think in his mind, up until the day he left the show, the character
He always was that guy.
He always thought he was a policeman, and he could not. He was there to protect and serve.
He was not a leader.
He
was not a leader.
No, he was there just to direct the traffic, but he failed miserably, and that was his conflict.
Right.
I think what it was is that Shane. The funny thing about it is that Shane could very well be what Negan is. I mean, basically, you had to adapt to the new world. Anybody that found their social conscience, their moral center on this show, you might as well put a red shirt on and join the Star Trek. You're going. You're done.
I absolutely agree with you. I think if they would have let Shane live, let's think this hypothetically, put our a crystal ball together. Fast forward a year, Shane doesn't die. Could Shane have been another Negan or another governor?
Well,
he had it in him.
He could have left off to be it because he had a much more survivalist attitude.
Sure,
but there's been a lot of there's a lot of back and forth with Rick also as time goes on. But we'll get into that. So, the thing is that, we sit with the characters as they went in Season 2. I think a reason why the season was so long is that Frank Darabont, to the best of my knowledge, he's the director and writer of Season 1, Episode 1 of Season 2. He is also the director, or at least the writer, on one more episode in that season. But he left early on, and I think what it was, they extended it because Darabont is such a stickler for detail to storyline, in particular with the adaptations, that they didn't have anybody on board that would be that way.
Yeah,
I think they extended a couple of those dead episodes just to give us some time to keep writing, because Frank Darabont's a machine. Good, bad, love him or leave him. I mean, he was the guy that did this, and that's why I think it was long. I think in retrospect, when I used to sit and watch the show, I would always go back and revisit the first, second, third season when the new season came out. And all of a sudden you turn around and always Season 2, I always go like, oh, I can zip through this. Oh, I can zip through that. Oh, I can zip through that. I can zip through this. Or I really care about the pregnancy test. Keep moving, And not that I want carnage, but, after a while it became so much.
Right.
But now we go to Season 3.
So, prison. I thought, personally, other than some subtle differences, I thought they did a dynamite job in that season.
I was very happy with it.
Yeah.
I was happy. Other than thinking they killed the governor by accident early on. I liked how they handled it. I like the prison, and if you really want to include the prison, you have to include the first half of Season 4, which is the return of the governor.
Right.
And that's something that in the book was one story. They meet the governor. He chops Rick's hands off. He's basically a P-R-I-C-K. He also rapes Michonne.
That's right.
He raped Michonne. Of course, Michonne cut his arm off and his eye. He's running around, seriously, looking like a very damaged roller derby player in the end of the show. And he was much more scuffed.
Yeah.
But it's, the prison followed it pretty well.
Pretty well. Except for the end, the big climactic battle, Laurie gets killed, the baby gets killed. There is no baby Judith in the comics after the prison sequence. So that was,
Well, when people get all, like, squeezy eye.
Can't kill babies, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
when people get scared or get like, oh, there was so much fun. Oh, poor Glenn's eye popped out. And this like that. Let me tell you something. In the comic, Glenn's eye does pop out. All right? As a matter of fact, it is as brutal in the comic as it is on the TV.
Yep.
But when, actually, you're right. No, Laurie did not die in childbirth.
It's not killed by Carl.
No, baby Judith was born. And as they're running from the prison,
bullet through both of them.
Right.
Done.
Goes through Laurie into the baby. They're both dead. And guess who fired that bullet? The governor.
Yeah.
The governor shot her, of which a sympathetic character in his group, it wasn't like Rick got the hell beat out of him by him and then Michonne took him out. Okay? After he sat and shot the mother and baby, some woman in his entourage just pushed him into a group of walkers, and he got taken apart. And that was it. End of the governor. Now, I did like the fact in Season 4 that we did the governor, what happened after the prison. Remember, the first half of Season 4 was wandering around with a beard. Obviously, no one's killing him.
Right.
And then he hooks up with a new family and possibly a new baby. And all this.
Yeah, that was kind of weird but interesting.
But it was kind of a little background on him. And I thought that was really great with that when they did that with him. But I think it even got better. Well, two things. If we go back to Season 3, if you recall, when the governor sat there, went to the prison, he failed miserably. Right? He left, he's so pissed off, he shoots everybody.
Yeah.
He kills everybody's entourage, and then he tells Martinez and this other guy, come on, let's go. I mean, first thing you're not going to do is like, can I have shotgun? Oops, sorry, just kidding. And then on top of that, can you imagine being on that ride with him after he's just killed everybody else in the town except you two? What do you possibly say?
Yeah.
I'd be a fly on the wall of that cab of that truck. That was priceless. But that's the way I would view things. But then again, I don't view things normally anyhow, so that's good. So anyway, getting back, they finished up his story. Yeah. And, but he also, he kind of got okay, had the family, and then he realized, oh shit, I don't have to put heads in aquariums. I'm just going to put whole bodies in a lake with ankle weights on them. And he's got this trophy room of zombies trying to get to the top of the water.
In my opinion, they waited too long to make him that guy.
I know. Yeah,
he should have been that guy from the very beginning.
Oh no, he just lost his mind, and that's it. Walks around where Daryl walked and wore a necklace of ears. He should have just had shoes made out of their heads. It would turn into Leatherface.
Yep.
Just nuts. But anyhow, they did that. But season 4 and 5 are some of the best written seasons.
Yeah, I agree with you. So in the essence of time, let's kind of skip through that quickly to get to the Negan era.
Oh, God.
That's probably what most people want.
Anyhow, season 4 and 5 are the best written seasons of all time. The character development, they were juggling about 14 characters at one time, and I really gave a shit about them all. And they moved forward, and, they almost starved once. They were eating dogs. They got trapped in a barn. Walkers were attacking them. It was awesome. And they really developed the character. Everybody went on a journey. This way, that way. Good. And then
that was a time where every episode they had you gripped, edge of your seat, and then waiting for next week's show.
This is when they had 17 million, anywhere from 15 to 17 million viewers a week, which is an astronomical number in the world of television. And that's when they had their highest point.
Yeah.
And then along came Negan.
Yeah. Which...
Well, actually Alexandria, but Negan.
Yeah, exactly. But, if you followed the comic, the whole Negan arc with the Saviors is long, and it's probably some of the best writing in the comic.
Oh yeah,
right. So most of us, because you got to remember, the TV show is lagging behind the comic by a good couple of years. All right, at least. So right now they're just getting to. I don't want to skip ahead too much. Right now they're getting to the whole Whisperers arc, which happened 3 years ago in the comic, at least. So that's how slow they are. But we were all waiting for the show to catch up. See, we got our. I don't know if you guys caught him. We got a.
Yes, we have a bartender here.
Yeah, we have a creature walking around the back here.
Matter of fact, 2 psychedelic zombie barbecue ale, sir. Just give me a whole basket. That was warm though. Can you give me some cold ones? Like your soul? Sorry.
So the Negan arc we have been waiting for years. So you would think, right, that by the time they introduced Negan and the Saviors, that would then take the show that is riding so high to heights even further. Didn't quite work out that way. Now, they introduced Negan. Now in the comic, let me just preface this a little bit. In the comic, Negan is a bad motherfucker. He is a nasty... I tried to show that a little bit before.
Psychedelic zombie barbecue cream ale, courtesy of the Newburgh Brewery, right around the corner from this fine establishment. Right, Shock Monster? Yeah, okay, good.
That's yours, I believe, right?
No, that's mine. We have 2. Let's just go. Come on. I got 30 cases of stuff. Let's just go for it.
So,
don't be shy.
Don't be shy. All right.
Jesus Christ. For a man that puts pictures of beer on Facebook, please. This is not a time to be coy.
That is true.
Thank you.
That is true. So, you would think that the introduction of Negan and the Saviors would then take this blockbuster show to new levels. However, and again, I'm going to go back to we talked about this already a couple times, there is a divide of the people who watch the show. There are people who watch the show, don't read the comic, and there are people who do both, right? There are followers of the comic, love it, and they're following the show and love the show. So for all of us who follow the comic, we knew what was coming. We were prepared for what was coming.
We knew Glenn was going to die. Glenn has to die.
Yeah, has to die.
To push the story forward. So when Glenn died, it's like,
but there was still some question on the show that they were actually going to go there, right?
Oh, yeah, no, but they made changes in the past. Yeah,
they had to, right? And they killed a couple of the characters, too. But that whole scene where Negan bashes the brains in of a couple people, including Glenn, we knew that was coming. but the people who don't read the comic didn't. And
That's
that episode pissed off so many viewers. It's unbelievable.
Some people called it horror porn.
Horror porn. Like, oh my God, I can't believe they show that on television.
But just
how can they kill Glenn, my favorite character?
Well, just to clarify this, the thing is number one, when we ended that season, where all of a sudden there's this cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Okay, where who did he hit?
Who did he hit?
Now, I'm going to go back to a time when I was younger, many years ago, with the troglodytes, the dinosaurs. No, there was a time back in the 60s, the 70s, in particular the 70s, there was no such thing as spoilers, bloggers. There was no this, there was no that. All you knew was what you read in the papers, sad as it seemed, God forbid. But the thing is that there was a show was called Dallas, and Dallas was a late-time soap opera, and there was a character on there called J.R. Ewing, who was a real piece of shit. Okay? And at one of the end of one of the seasons, somebody shot him. And for the whole summer, you had to wait until the fall to see who shot him. Now, the thing
that's all anybody talked about.
Yeah. But in those days, there wasn't tweeting and all this. These type of things in shows were called water cooler conversations. When you were in the office, everybody get together, so did you see that show last night? Because that's the only way you'd see it. There were no VCRs unless you had a lot of money. Nobody knew. So the thing is that I believe that whole episode where they bashed their brains and they left us hanging, okay, I think that was genius. People came on their shit and said, that's such a cheap ploy, they're making it. And then what happens? There are guys out there with sound analysis, like they're investigating the Robert F. Kennedy assassination on how many bullets were fired. I mean, they're sitting there and they're going, watch, if you edit this, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, uncle, and you let it go.
We're taking bets on who got it.
Who got it? And then finally, if you really sit and think about it and you watch the show, why did I think Abraham was going to get it? Because he's the only one that looked at Negan with defiance. And you knew, you're trying to play alpha male in my world, I'm going to turn your head into a piece of steak tartare. Yeah. But anyway, sorry.
And Abraham dies in the comic, but not at that moment.
As Denise.
Right.
He died earlier as Denise the doctor who got the crossbow through her head and her eye. Why Abraham died with Negan, that was Robert Kirkman's work. Robert Kirkman always felt that Abraham deserved a, quote, dignified death on the show. And he actually was out on a little routine walking around, and all of a sudden a crossbow arrow goes through his head. He goes, hey, Gluck, Gluck, how about those Mets? And he goes down. Now, the thing about it is, I don't know. Dignified death, would I rather just have an arrow going through my head and I just mutter a few words and drop to my face? Or would I rather have my head turned into a piece of steak tartare? Honestly, because he hit him once, he got back up and he goes, seriously, dude? You're not going to get out of this. You might just lay there and say, Ave Maria, I'm fucking out of here. Okay, but no, he sits there and goes, suck my nuts. Yeah, great. That's going to really change this guy's mind. Yeah. That lunatic. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah. But he died earlier on, and that's why I was in the game that 1-2. Nobody knew Abraham was going to get killed. Yeah. All these people, their sound analysis, and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and all this stuff. God. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, I didn't think Abraham was going to get it. Why are you wasting the time? Go do something right. Do something for the community, for Christ's sakes. Sorry, go ahead.
But a well done little scene right there. Which
yes,
of course, it went from season to season.
But that would have been great as it not been spoiled. The point of it was being spoiled.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's no way around it.
There's no, you can't do it around it. But anyhow, it was much better than people gave it. And also, Glenn did get his eye did pop out.
Yeah.
In the comic,
brutal in the comic.
Oh no, he gets hit. I don't know if he says, "Maggie, I'll see you there." That was kind of even creepy, but his eye did pop out like a ping pong.
He turns his head to mush in the comic,
literally. And that happened. So when it happened, Peter and I guess we weren't surprised. I was like,
a lot of people were like, "Oh my god,
what were they expecting? Put like a wool sock over his head and choke him?"
Yeah. But then where I thought that the show failed is that they rode that emotion and that carnage of that episode. I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan as an actor, right? I really do. Honestly, I don't think he's been a great Negan, to be honest with you, because I think that they tempered his character so much in the season following that, and to this day, where he's just kind of like, he's got this smug look on his face, always smiling.
Well, he's always been, even in the comic. He's over the top. He's campy.
Yeah.
But he's in a comic book sense.
He's this enormous guy in the comic.
Oh, in the game.
Menacing. And I don't get that from Harry Dean Morgan's
Jeffrey Dean. Not
Jeffrey. I'm sorry, Jeffrey Dean. Jeffrey. Yeah.
That's the guy that was on MASH.
Yeah, exactly. Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Well, they originally wanted Henry Rollins. Robert Kirkman. Robert Kirkman designed, or I was inspired.
But you can tell if you look at it,
he got that chiseled look. Yeah, I mean, I think that
it's probably not in this.
There are moments. Well, speaking of like behemoths on the show, okay, no disrespect to Tyrese, but in the comic, Tyrese is an ex-Atlanta Falcons defensive tackle or something, defensive end. He's like 6'8". He's about 6 inches taller and about 6 inches wider.
He was a kick-ass character in the comic.
Oh, he was
a wimpy loser in the show.
Let me give you a little background on Tyrese.
And that actor is great because if you saw him in the was it The Wire?
The Wire. He's also on a number of other shows. I mean, he's very good. No, they turned him once again into a wuss. First off, there's this big conflict between Rick and him, who's in charge. Yeah. They meet Tyrese. He does not come whining at the gate. He does not go to the governor. He has nothing to do with it. Well, he has something to do with the governor. We'll get back to that. But they find him on the road with his daughter, her boyfriend, and somebody else. Yep. Now, to give you an indication how much of a badass Tyrese is in the show, okay? One, he goes in, he gets locked into, when they're cleaning the prison out, he gets locked in a recreation yard with a bunch of walkers. Rick comes back, all the walkers are down, there's Tyrese with a bloody toothbrush. I mean, he did whatever he did. His hammer. He took them all out. Secondly, his daughter, who he's very protective of, and her boyfriend, they have a suicide pact in the comic. And the daughter commits suicide. The son, or the boyfriend, chickens out. Tyrese not only goes in there, okay, he slowly strangles the guy to death. Yeah. Then, when he rises up as a walker, he cuts him into little pieces. This is one bad dude. Yeah. But his demise, he was decapitated by the governor.
Yes. And no Sister Sasha in the...
no, Sasha is basically an offshoot of the doomed Andrea character.
Right. Yeah.
So, there are major changes. Yeah. And like I said, Negan, no disrespect, there's a side of me that likes what he does with him. There's a side of me I don't like what he does, but it's true. He's not intimidating.
I don't think
I mean, he's got to be big and brutal, and he's not that big. He's much bigger than Lincoln.
Yeah.
But
so let's bring everybody up to speed. So, like, where we're at, like, recent times. So I don't know how many of you have watched the most recent episodes. Okay, if you haven't, again, spoiler alerts. So you know that they got rid of the Rick Grimes character, right? So Rick is no longer on the show. A lot of reason behind that, and Dan's going to give us a little bit of insights there. Rick is still alive and well in the comic. Okay, Carl, we didn't talk about that. They killed Carl off in the show. Okay, Carl is still alive and well in a huge part of the comic.
Carl and Rick are pivotal parts of the Whisperer storyline.
Which they're just starting now with neither one of them.
Not only with the fact that Carl continues his relationship on with Negan, who I believe Carl looks as Negan as what Shane was.
Yeah, I think
a kick-ass, get it done, teach me fishing. He's always had this problem with his dad, the daddy issue, whatever it may be. But that's one thing there. And then also Rick, in the Whisperer Wars, actually goes to Negan to seek advice.
Yeah.
Because Rick knows, as much as we hate to admit it, Rick knows that Negan ran a tight ship. And Rick has always failed his people. So he goes to Negan in this weird consigliere, give me advice.
You got to stay here locked in your cage, but I need some advice from you.
Yes, and they played that game recently on the show where the door was left open.
Yeah.
Now, if he does what he does, spoiler alert, now he did this with Rick, spoiler alert is that when Negan finds his cage, his thing open, he sits there, and all he does is he closes the gate, and he sits inside, and his first thing to Rick, he goes, I could have left whenever I wanted to, but I didn't. And it's just so awesome in the comic how he does it.
But remember, in the comic, there is no 6-year gap in between.
It's about 3.
It's about 3. Is that what they say? I read all of it. Some say 6, some say 5. Whatever. Whatever. It's a couple of years.
How it boils down to, not to clarify and take up more time, but I think they're intrigued. They're going to stick around for an extra couple of minutes. The thing is about it is that in the comic, when the War with Negan ends, or they call All Out War, the next story arc starts, which is called A New Beginning, I believe.
It's less than a year, though, right?
It's about 2 years.
It's about 2 years,
about 2, because at that time, okay, spoiler alert, okay, not only is Alexandria the hilltop, the sanctuary is being run by Dwight.
Right.
Dwight did not disappear. Dwight becomes their liaison. It's not
right.
Carol.
Where's
it's not
he
this.
been?
He went off to exile land with his wife after Negan was taken down. But also in that during the war with Negan, the I'd like to say the Amazonian beach community. What's it called?
I forget what they're called.
You know, they're all the women were, which is odd because it goes against. It shows the writing. Why would Negan kill all their men? He wanted the men.
Yeah.
So he killed all their men. Now they hate Negan. But anyhow, they are not mentioned in the Negan story. But in the New Day or the New Beginning, when it jumps about 2 years, all the places are prospering, and they are using a kind of a dock, waterfront, similar to that community. Michonne is like Captain Sinbad. She goes up and down the coast, and they find other places. They trade. It's become like the New World, and that's what happens in the comic. But anyhow.
And Ezekiel, who is still alive in the show, dies in the comic. In the comic, Ezekiel and Michonne have a relationship.
Oh, Michonne?
Not Carol and Ezekiel.
Let's get back to that. Let's get back to that sex pit. Okay, let me explain something about Michonne here in the comic. Okay, Michonne, number one. Okay, she starts to the first person she sleeps with is Tyrese.
Tyrese, yes.
Now, this is why the Carol of the comic book is no longer around. Carol was they did not play the emphasis on her that she was this battered housewife. Okay, she was fragile, but her husband died, I think kids died, whatever it was. Sophia was her daughter, right? But Sophia's still alive.
Right.
But the thing is Carol's very fragile, and she hooks up with Tyrese when he shows up at the prison.
Yep.
They have a thing, and then all of a sudden when Michonne shows up, Tyrese is playing around with Michonne. Carol attempts, now here we go, cover the kid's ears. Carol goes in and tries to have a threesome with Rick and Lori, of which they tell her to go away.
They were horrified.
Oh, it was like, God, a menage a trois in a prison cell.
This happened in comics, guys.
Yeah, finally, wow, check that off the bucket list. But anyhow, that's what happened, and she's so distraught. Now, meanwhile, going back to the CDC, where it doesn't exist in the comic and nobody knows what the hell is going on out there, they have a walker tied up out in an exercise yard. Apparently this prison had multiple exercise yards. But they have this walker, and they just observe it. They stare at it. They try to hand him a Twinkie, and he doesn't eat that. And then they go and, and then he bites his hand. But they're trying to figure out what makes these things tick. Well, Carol is so distraught over whatever the hell's going on, turned down by Rick and Lori. Michonne stole her man, and whatever else happened in those first 6 months when the infestation hit, she said, fuck it, I'm out of here. And she goes into the prison lot, or the recreation room, and has the zombie bite her throat out.
End it.
End it. Done. No more Carol.
Goodbye, Carol.
And she was not that, she was like Herschel. Not missed.
Yeah.
Not missed. Now, strangely enough, getting back to the change, how things changed on the series due to politics. After Frank Darabont left and then Jeffrey DeMunn says, I'm out of here, and Laurie Holden gets written off the show, the last person left from the Mist is Carol.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, if you think about this, they struggle through season 2. Of course, Carol's looking for her daughter, Sophia. She still has that attitude, though, that she's beaten down all the time. She's scared. And, then Sophia's dead. She freaks out even more. But it's all of a sudden after season 2 and okay, Frank Darabont's going, let's get our footing back in here. Okay, all of a sudden Carol in the next few episodes all of a sudden starts evolving into starting with showing the kids on how to gut a stranger with a fishing knife in story time. And all that stuff. She is turned into
Remember her with the 2 little girls? At the cabin?
Exactly. She's turned.
That was a great episode, by the way.
Which now that in the comic were not 2 little girls.
Yeah.
It was 2 brothers, and who killed the kid? It wasn't Carol, because Carol was kind of fucked up. It was Carl.
Yeah.
Carl shot the kids.
Right.
There you go. See, Carl was a sociopath also. The comic, trust me, it's rife with sex, intrigue, madness.
Gore.
Oh, it's great, and oh yeah, and zombies. As
We haven't talked about zombies at
That's
all.
when they sit there and say it's about the people. No shit, man.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we talk about the show with like what's going on the screen and what goes on behind the screen.
That's right.
Behind the screen is so much more intriguing.
Yeah.
You know, and but anyhow, Carol, she has become that cookie baking sociopathic now in the next time jump cat woman, cat lady, crazy that we've learned to love.
Yep.
It's the aunt you want to have around for the holidays, but don't let her carve the turkey.
That's right.
So it's with that, we're getting back to that. No, what are we getting back to? Oh, getting back to the most recent season.
Where we are now, yeah. So Rick is gone. And some of you probably heard he has now struck up a deal with AMC to star in 3 or 4 or whatever it is, AMC films, Walking Dead kind of associated films where I'm assuming it's going to be, the zombie apocalypse in the UK or something like that.
Right.
And so he's obviously, that's where he's from, it's where his family is. So he kind of got his cake and he's eating it too, here.
Hey,
And
remember they took him off in a helicopter. He could be anywhere.
he could be anywhere. So whether they explain that or not, I don't know. Maggie all of a sudden is gone, right? They haven't really explained where she's gone, but Lauren Cohen is actually...
She went off with the woman that had the records. That was dressed
did.
up.
But they haven't really explained it much.
No, she looked like Tattoo's large, blonde, older sister.
Yeah.
Had the white suit, named Georgie. I think what they were saying is that she went there.
Okay. But they haven't really talked about it much.
No,
it's like she's gone. But but we know why she's gone, because Lauren Cohen is starring in a pilot series on one of the networks, so she may or may not be back.
But the door's open.
The door's open for her to come back. But is she going to come back? I mean, she's doing movies now.
You give it its run, but when you come back, it's just like Michael Rooker said once at a convention. People have said, "Hey, would you ever come back and do a cameo as Merle in a flashback?" You know what his attitude is after doing the what do you call films? Guardians of the Galaxy? Because they can't afford me now.
Yeah, now.
So that's what it is. You go back
Marvel,
now. You're a marketing thing, which brings us back to the changes in this season, real quick. What I said earlier on, there was a lot of behind-the-scene politics that altered the storyline. And being fans we were, I don't mind them altering the storyline, creating things, doing different things. It kept us interested.
Well, as long as they make them interesting, they hook us in, right?
But now, whenever there's a major change, like in the beginning, okay, Dale and Andrea, they haven't been picked up for a full season, and also these main characters are going off who are in the quote the Canaan. All of a sudden, now you have the situation. The Whisperer War is coming up. It's on the horizon. It started. Now you've got, for starters, Carl and Rick, as we said earlier, are major components in this story. Now, why did this happen the way it did? This is my theory and what I've been able to read, and sometimes things slip out. They don't wait 3 or 4 years like the old days. People don't give a shit. As soon as the bad news, let's get the bad news and get a lawsuit going. But what happens is all of a sudden it's like they didn't mention that Chandler Riggs was going to college. Nothing was ever said. There was a rumor. That was said. Then all of a sudden, he was looking at other movie offers. It never really came out, and then all of a sudden they killed him.
Yeah.
He's gone. And soon afterwards, Chandler Riggs' father, who kind of oversees his career, made this public statement that I never liked or trusted Scott Gimple from get-go. Now, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. Was it, we want more money, we want to do this, we want to do that? We don't know. Soon after Carl or Chandler Riggs was written off the show, Jeffrey Dean Morgan came out and said, I'm disappointed that Chandler Riggs is off the show because I was looking forward, one of the reasons I came on was the dynamics between Rick and his son's character. Yeah. Now that's gone. Now they have him talking to Judith, and then Michonne pays him a visit. And what? Father Gabriel, he's amped up his cred lately, but it's another story.
And why is he with Rosita?
He's all over too.
What is that all about?
And Rosita's supposed to end up with Eugene in the comic.
In the comics,
not to ruin it. I know. And then the thought of her being with Eugene might be quite repulsive. Yeah. I get it. There are more men than Eugene in the. And if I had to choose behind a one-eyed Seth Gilliam and a fully functional Josh McDermott, if that were my persuasion, I may go with Father Gabriel. Okay, sorry, so shoot me. But anyhow, I'm sorry. I'm having way too much fun.
Too much fun.
Hey, fuck it. You know? But anyhow, as it gets back to the season right now, that he and Jeffrey Dean Morgan made this announcement that, I'm disappointed. Then all of a sudden you hear Rick Grimes. Now, Andrew Lincoln, he came out, and there was rumors it was his last season. Now, Laurie Cohen, in respect, had already signed for a season.
Right. She
She was signed to a pilot, whatever, if it takes off, I'm leaving. So she was going to give whatever it is. And she arranged that commitment. So all of a sudden, like Steve, Andrew Lincoln is going, I'm leaving. And then all of a sudden, you hear Andrew Lincoln, and not only that annoyed me. There's only 22 minutes and 16 seconds till Andrew Lincoln's last episode. They kept announcing it.
Yeah.
It was like having
There was no element of surprise.
Oh, it was like Dick Clark on Groundhog Day on New Year's Eve, just going on and on. It's like, I get it. He's leaving.
And they created what could have been a great death scene, and then they pulled the rug up from under you, and like, nah, not really.
Well, the thing is, why he's not dead, this is my theory, is that what happened is when Andrew Lincoln, he may have been very disappointed, because let's face it, he was working with Chandler Riggs for a number of years. Okay, he probably knew the Glenn thing was coming and this and that, but Chandler Riggs and the Carl thing came out of left field. I don't care how you view it, you're not going to expect that, especially since he's such an integral part of the storyline going forward. And so I think Andrew Lincoln went to them in his very British way, and he said, I'm sorry, I can't work under these conditions. I'm going home. And so they probably said, fine, but you signed for a full contract. So if you want to leave right now, toodaloo, bye-bye, but you'll be hearing from our lawyers. And I think what it is, I might be wrong, and like I said, I thought he was going to stay to the end of the ninth season. I want to spend time with my family. I've given it 9 years. I get it. They live in England. The kids are British. The wife is British, okay? I mean, her father is Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. It gets no more British than that, okay? Unless his foster dad is John Cleese. It's they're no more British than that. They want to go home. Get it? But anyhow, he left, and I think this 3-movie thing is a compromise.
I think so.
You owe us some time, so let's do these 3 movies, and we'll all be happy. Enjoy fishing for salmon with your father-in-law.
Which is what Ian does most of the year.
Ian does, yeah. But I think I have liked it since season 9 has begun. I'm sorry. I thought it's the best writing in the last at least 4 years.
So in your opinion, and this is a great segue to kind of finish up this epic and wonderful, fun talk here, your impressions on last night's episode and where that leaves us going forward.
Okay. I'd like to do that if we get one last thing. Who was our favorite character?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Well, not now.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I do think
so we can think about it for the next couple minutes.
I know my favorite character is.
Okay.
But anyhow, last night's episode, I did not like the time jumps at first. I realized it is important to have it in the storyline because of the way it's going and everybody leading the cast. And we are technically about 10 years after the beginning of the show. That's how it works out. It's about 10 years. You can meet my graph at the MIT website. I have my graphs and my charts there. But last night's episode, I thought it was, what I enjoyed about it most, was that this is the first time in the first season, as I think I said to you earlier, as you watch the first season over and over, you see the characters go that are totally frightened. They have no idea what they're dealing with. They are scared shitless, and they don't know what they're up against. And you see it in their eyes, how they handle things. Granted, there's a sequence with the Saviors, once again, a lost moment, where they're all whistling in the woods, surrounding them. But the thing is, in that situation, it's like, we know we're dealing with humans. We know what we're dealing with. So it's creepy, it's scary, they're circling us. But last night, what it was, everything from Daryl, who's always been self-assured since day one, everybody sending off fireworks, the walkers are walking, they're walking in formation, and this and that, and the fear on Eugene's face, and Rosita when they first see them, and Rosita wanting to rescue Eugene, and the whole creepy graveyard, and the wrought iron, and just that Halloween feel, and all of a sudden, what is the final line? You don't belong here. Yeah. And he stabs Jesus, a shocking death.
Yeah, I did not see that coming.
No, and I thought that the looks on their faces, even Daryl down, is the first time they are feeling fear in 8 seasons.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're up against.
Very well done scene.
It was well done, and so it pulled me back. I was sad that Ed was going, but I said I've been watching since episode 1 this season. I think this has been some of the best writing, and it's been my opinion. And they've started to take something from there and move forward. If they'll salvage it, I don't know. But like I said, 5 million viewers is enough to keep a lot of things afloat.
Yeah.
So
there they go. I was ready. I was honestly ready to give up on the show a couple episodes ago, and I think I told you that.
Well, that's why I saw it on Facebook. I said, "You cannot do that.
Can't do that. We got to do this show." So I've watched the last 2 since Andrew Lincoln left the show, and not too bad. It leaves me with some positive thinking about where they're going to go from here. I'll put it to you this way: I have enough respect for the Whisperer's arc in the comic book, which I thought was pretty damn good.
Very good.
To think that, man, if they're really going to screw this show up, they're going to have to do it here. Because if they can get through this arc and do it justice, then they'll keep me as a viewer. So I'm going to give him the Whisperer story, and I'm going to continue watching.
And the only thing I'm concerned about with the Whisperer story arc, okay, is that for one thing that happened just recently before the time jump, which really annoyed me, is that when Maggie goes in to talk to Negan and is going to effectively kill him, and Negan breaks down,
blubbering, crying,
like a child. And you know something? They have the perfect Hollywood moment there. The cliched moment, as much as we want to be creative and redo this and that, they had the perfect moment that after she sat there and he was crying and blubbering like an infant, all they had to do is when she left the room, as he's leaning, facing the camera, all he had to do was make a smirk, knowing
like
he's playing her. Yeah. But they never left you with that. And in my mind, even though
they left you thinking that he was completely broken.
Right, and now he starts out the new episode. Now, in reference to the Whisperers and Hopes, if the Whisperers follow the line they go along, any people have not read the comic, and this might be an interesting spoiler to put you to watch the show. Yeah. Negan actually redeems himself in this comic.
He does.
And he comes back and
he helps them against the Whisperers.
He helps them because his no-nonsense bullshit attitude is what the world does need. They don't need Rick Grimes. They need more people like Negan, like it or not. And then finally, put yourself in that position. If we had followed Negan's story from day one as opposed to Rick Grimes, you'd like Negan equally as well. Because they're both pretty savage in their own way. More savage. Now, fine, the last thing we're going to do as we finish this 3-hour miniseries, and that is...
well, just to let you know, this is the most recent paperback volume. This is number 30. So it's called New World Order. This introduces... We're already done with the Whisperers arc. This introduces the Commonwealth. A little bit different. Again, it's just starting with that. I know you haven't read this yet.
This is the place.
This is basically the kind of the big city that they discover where they have different classes of people, and it's run like a regular society, except what they do is the people in power, what they've looked at is everybody who lives in this city called the Commonwealth, whatever you were, whether you were lower class, middle class, upper class, before the zombie apocalypse, that's what you are here. And if you're a lower class person or a middle class person, you got to work, you got to do exactly what you were doing before, but if we were upper class beforehand, we're running the show.
You know what's funny? That's funny. This kind of shows, not that we keep going further, but if you could edit this into 4 segments. The interesting thing about it, you mentioned the Commonwealth, and I have not read the Commonwealth arc. The funny thing about it is that going back, and this is a big plug for George Romero, is that George Romero was the one that started this all. Yeah. You know, he was, and in essence, not just started it, he was one of the pivotal independent directors of cinema in the 60s. Even though it's a horror movie, he did something that nobody else did. Either him or John Cassavetes or whatever it may be. They were independents. Now, the point is that Robert Kirkman has never denied the fact that if it wasn't for Night of the Living Dead, he would not have done The Walking Dead. Number 2, I think he wanted Romero's approval. And he wanted it badly. But he's always paid homage to the point where Morgan's son, Dwayne Jones, is the real name of the actor that played Ben in the original film.
That's right.
Now,
I never caught that before.
The funny thing about it is the Commonwealth, if it is what it is, and I have not read the comic, where you're higher echelon, you're lower echelon, that is the basic premise of George Romero's film, Land of the Dead.
Yeah. That's right.
That's what it is. And I believe it's called The Comet.
It might. I don't remember.
It's called
I'll have
The
to look that
Comet,
up.
but you have to check it. So that's another homage to George Romero. Yet when George Romero was asked about The Walking Dead, God bless his resting soul, he sat there and went, "It's just a zombie movie. It's a soap opera."
The zombie soap opera.
He was asked to direct. He turned it down, and he remained very dignified about it. He just said, "No, I'm not doing it because." I would love to pick Robert Kirkman's brain one day and say, "Did you ever sit down with George and get his approval? Or did you ever sit there and say thank you so much," as people did with people like Forrest J. Ackerman and John Landis, Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, all these directors of the '80s used to read a horror magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland, and it was called Forrest J. Ackerman, Uncle Florey, and they paid homage to him. It was one for him. We didn't have our geeky outlets. And so that's it. You brought Chinese food. It's still sitting there.
Yeah, it's still warm.
That's okay. I even wore my Woe Hop shirt in honor of that.
Look at that. See?
Oh, no. Woe Hop. Not serving Asian fusion, but Chinese food since 1938.
Chris Allen, this is for you, by the way. So we're going to end this out with a question.
Who's our favorite character?
Favorite Walking Dead character?
You go first. Mine is really so weird.
Really?
Yeah, come on.
All right. So I'm having a hard time picking. It's between two. It's either Maggie or Daryl. So I'm picking a female and a male.
All right.
I like them both for different reasons.
Let's narrow this down. No, just female or male.
Female or male. But yeah, I like them both.
I want Bob, the transgender. He's there. He covers all the bases, and God, he can knock some Walker heads in.
There you go. Who's yours?
Mine? Oh, all right. Go back to season 2. This character's so obscure. Otis.
Otis.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah. Now Otis
forgot
in the
all
comic.
about him. So after all this time, he's still your favorite character.
But I'll tell you why.
I remember Otis.
Otis, okay, in the comic was there. He died. Whatever it was. He's one of these characters. But in the series, man, there's this guy. He weighs about 300 pounds. Number one.
Wasn't he the brother?
He was friends of Herschel.
Herschel's friend,
his
family friend, right?
He was an orphan they adopted.
Right.
But anyhow, he was this guy. He weighed about 250, 300 pounds. How tall he is. He obviously, after the apocalypse, right, he's raised by Herschel. He obviously is hunting deer. That's how he shoots Carl. Yeah. He's also responsible for wrangling the zombies to bring them into Herschel's barn, right? Now, so he's obviously a provider. And then on top of that, he shoots Carl. He's totally filled with remorse. As far as a character, right? What does he do? I know the school. It was a FEMA space. Him and Shane go there, right? They go. This. He's out of his way. It goes down, this and that. They get trapped. They come out. They end up in a gymnasium.
Shane's like...
Yeah, I know. Gymnasium. And, they're on top of the bleachers. And it's Shane... And it's Otis. Now, Otis is, and meanwhile, they'd have no way out. So what does Otis say? Otis says, I could lure them away. Shane goes, where? That door. It goes into the locker room. He goes, why do you go in that locker room? He goes, well, the window's there. I can get out those windows. I can't get out of the window. Give you some time to get out of the window. So he goes, Otis jumps, right, all 300 pounds, onto the gymnasium floor. And he runs into this door. And you meanwhile, you're going, this fucker's toast. He's done. He's not going to get out. And then all of a sudden, Shane gets through the window, sprains his ankle. Shane's running around limping. You hear a couple of shots as Shane falls out the window. So did Otis shoot himself? Whatever happened, right? We don't know. But all you know is this guy is not very fast. And so Shane comes around, and next thing you know, Shane is cornered. And Walker's heads are coming off. And there's Otis in the background with the gun. And he's taking these things out. Shane Gray, he saves Shane. And you figure, first, when this guy jumps off these bleachers, he ain't getting out of this. But they run, they're going along. What does he do? Shane shoots him in the leg so he can get away. And they could have gotten out of there. Together. And he shot him in the leg so he could be a hero to Lori. And, when Otis went down...
That's why I told you Shane was a scumbag.
Yeah, he was. No, he was a scumbag. He was more, yes, absolutely. And he turned, you're right. That's why he's
just from that scene alone.
Yeah.
And wasn't it after that scene where he gets back and he shaves his head?
Boy, because Otis pulled the hair out of his head.
Yeah.
So, he did that to ingratiate some with Lori, saving Carl's life. But there's Shane, and trust me, as soon as Otis went down, all those walkers are going, look at the size of him. Let's make way for the buffet. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
And he was done. And honestly, to this day, I found that Otis was Daryl Dixon with a better attitude. However, he had a weakness for ring dings. But I always felt that he was a great character that could have been moved on. And they just chomped him up. But once again, pivotal to Shane's scumbaggery.
Yep.
Baggery. Oh, well. So, anyhow, but that was it. I'd like to wish everybody, we're saying bye now?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Wow, an hour and 20 minutes. Come here, shock monster. Where'd he go? Fall asleep?
We fell asleep. We lost him. We lost our monster.
Oh, he lost our monster. But
anyway, guys, thanks for hanging in here. Hope you enjoyed this kind of rant on the history of The Walking Dead series and comic. Hopefully we covered just about everything. If not, if you love this and we can muster up a part 2, maybe we'll do that.
Oh, we could do that because there's so much crap.
So maybe we do it like 6 months from now or next year when we've had some new
Or we
episodes.
could do a Fear the Walking. You watch Fear the Walking Dead?
No, I gave up on that.
Oh, see? Well, I'll pull you back.
Anyway, thanks for guys.
Happy holidays.
For all of our Sea
Merry
Tranquility
Christmas.
and Comic Book Geezer viewers, thanks for sticking with us here. We hope you enjoy this, and we'll see you again real soon.
All right.
Thanks again to Dan Brown for
my
joining
pleasure.
us here. As
Thanks
always.
to Newburgh Brewery.
That's
for
right.
bringing us psychedelic zombie barbecue ale.
That's
Available
right.
at the warehouse, $5 a can or 5 for $20 in a bucket. Oh,
That's right. Come down to Liberty Street, Newburgh for the warehouse. Lots of good food and beer.
bucket with hazmat thing on it.
There you go.
And 5 beers. You don't get to keep the bucket. I need that.
But you can drink the beers.
What, $4 a beer? Come on, break down.
Can't beat that.
Where's the word of Lord's charity? Come up a bucket, cheap
Bastard.
bastard.
Oh, Reservoir Dogs. That's right.
Reservoir
Yes.
Dogs. Yeah.
By the way, I'm thinking about doing movie reviews, so I
do
may
this.
have to have you on.
We should
some of
do
these.
a late night horror show.
That's what I'm going to. I want to do vintage horror reviews. So
There's
anyway.
many things in the works. Thanks, technology.
That's right.
Technology. We'll see you. Wow,
So thanks,
an hour and
guys.
21 minutes. Take care.
We appreciate it. Hope you enjoy this. We'll see
2
you real
hours
soon.
of commercials.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.